TeachOn. It's the difference that we make in every single child in our classroom. I'm Darcy Grimes. I'm currently an instructional technology facilitator at 2 schools in Watauga County. I've also taught 3rd grade for the past 6 years. My first 3 years teaching, I loved what I was doing. I taught 2nd grade my first year and then 3rd grade, but I realized I needed a change. I wanted something different. And instead of wanting to necessarily leave the profession, I knew I needed a change. So at that point, I actually changed districts from where I was teaching. I moved up the mountain and started teaching in Watauga County and taught 3 years up here. And I find when I reflect back, every 3 years, I kind of go through this lull where I want something different and I need a change. So after 3 years teaching in Watauga County 3rd grade, I was actually honored to be named the North Carolina Teacher of the Year. And so I took a year where I was traveling across the state, speaking to many teachers, working with universities and colleges, and it was a very different type of year. Coming back, I realized I didn't want to go directly back in the classroom. I needed something different because at that point, knowing everything that I did and having the experiences I had, if I went directly into the classroom, I felt like maybe I was going to be stagnant. After my first 3 years teaching, I realized that I needed a change. And it wasn't necessarily one moment. I can't remember one moment in my classroom, but it was little things that would come up throughout the year. I was in a wonderful school with wonderful students, but it was very, I don't want to say scripted, but in a way it was the teachers all taught the same way. And I realized that I had had 3 years experience and then I was ready to be me. And my philosophy of teaching and the way that I teach was very different than the philosophy of other teachers around me. And so it was many things over the year that made me realize I needed to do something different. The first initial big change that I made was deciding that I needed to leave that school and go to a different school, one that had the same philosophy as I did. And once I found that school, I taught for a year in that school, loved it, and then I realized I still wanted more. And so instead of changing what I was teaching or leaving where I was, I decided to enroll in Appalachian State to get my master's in instructional technology because I realized very quickly that my love was integrating technology into the classroom as a tool for my students to use. The two big changes that I made was leaving the one school I was at to go to another school and then also starting a master's program. And by making those two changes, I was really making those changes for me. It was hard to leave the students at the school I was at. It was hard to leave the other teachers, but I realized I had to be selfish in a way and make that change for me. And when I did, it impacted everything that I did in my classroom. What I was learning through my program, integrating technology into my classroom, and then also the other colleagues that I worked with at my new school that had the same philosophy as me. It really just changed everything I did inside my classroom, and it made me happier. You have to find what it is that you are passionate about, and you have to make that decision. You have to decide, there's wonderful teachers all over, but you have to look at what all the teachers are doing and decide what will work for you. I know I've spent a lot of time watching other teachers teach, and they're wonderful teachers, but I have to take what I see in their classroom and make it me, and make it work for my class, because not everything will fit. What I would say to teachers, and that I've said many times, is teaching is hard, and it's always going to be hard. It gets a little bit easier after the first year, but teaching is a hard profession. But what we have to focus on every day are those students in our classroom and those students' future. We can get caught up in everything that's going around politically and everywhere else, and with parents and PEPs and all of these things that come up with teaching, but what we have to stay focused on is our students and what we want to do for them and what skills we want them to have for them to be successful. What I would add is that it's really important to have those relationships with your students. every student that I've had in my classroom, they know me as their teacher, but they also know me as a human. They know that I ride my bike and that I run and I do, I hike and all of these things. And at the same time, I know those things about them too. I go and watch their basketball games or their dance recitals or whatever it is. And that's really what makes that relationship. And I can't imagine teaching anybody in my classroom if I didn't have that relationship. It really makes the difference between I don't know exactly how to say this, but it really makes the difference between a teacher that's connecting with all of their students and a teacher who's standing up in front of the room teaching. It's got to be, you have to have those relationships with students. TeachOn.